Today I invite my fellow Kenyans to examine the 2018-2019 national budget as presented to the country by CS Henry Rotich. Three things stand out clearly about this budget. The most prominent thing is that this is a corruption budget. Listening to the CS deliver his budget speech, and much earlier having read the finance statement, it leaves no doubt in my mind that corruption resides within this budget. It brings to mind a clip I watched on social media by a prominent Nigerian critic who argued that corruption was an industry in Nigeria, and that if for some reason you brought down corruption in Nigeria, then life will come to a standstill. I'm now convinced more than ever before that corruption in this country is indeed, as in Nigeria, an industry. Nowhere would you find the answer to this than in Rotich's budget. If you look at the budget and the provisions therein, things you would expect to be funded to receive priority funding are put to the back, pushed to the back, widely prominence and priority is given to projects that makes it easy for the thieves to steal the money. Look at agriculture, the backbone of our economy. You give like 40 billion to agriculture, but give billions of other shillings, billions of shillings to phantom projects, irrigation, that are not quite within agriculture, dams that don't contribute directly to agriculture, infrastructure of things we don't quite see. We may need them, but we don't quite see them. One would have expected the government to give priority to agriculture as a way of handling food security. You don't see that. One would have thought choosing between the administration of justice and parliament, Rotich will look favorably to the administration of justice. He gives 17 billion to the judiciary, proceeds to give 36 billion to parliament, okay? And you look at 800 million to clean Nairobi River, you wonder which is easier, to provide 800 million or simply to arrest the crooks who are polluting the river by pumping shit into the river. So generally, if you look at the budget, you begin to see that there's so much that is left out that was necessary. You provide 12 billion for the failed project of the laptops, but you fail to provide sufficient funds to hire teachers for our schools. So in general, looking at the budget, you begin to accept that this budget is actually intended to finance corruption and theft of public property by placing the resources and monies in places where it is easy to steal. The second thing you look at this budget is the debt. And nobody is indicating that we have reached the crisis level with our debt. Today, in the budget, there is a provision for 870 billion, more than 3 times the budget of Rwanda, slightly more than the budget of Uganda. 870 billion for repayment, for servicing of our debts. And yet, within the same budget, Rotich proposes to borrow a further 560 billion shillings. At this rate of borrowing, I firmly believe, and I can project, that in another 4-5 years, all our revenue will go towards servicing debts, so that we would have reached that critical moment where we will have to borrow not only to sink deeper into debt and burden our grandchildren, but to borrow to finance recurrent expenditures such as salaries. The moment a nation reaches there, and we are about to get there, then we are done. The third thing about this budget is about the poor. Rotich has made no pretense about what he feels about the poor. He proposes to tax the poor more than they have been taxed before, by hitting them where it matters most, by making flour or unga more expensive, by taxing fuel, kerosene that is used by the poor, diesel that will mean fares will go up, transportation will go up, and the cost of living will go up. And yet, in these measures, there isn't even significant amounts of money he expects to raise. So you can see it's the disdain, it's the contempt he has for the poor. A simple thing like taxing those who earn 750,000 per month, not per year, 750,000 per month, where he had proposed to increase some taxation for them. That he removed, showing you, to him, Kenya belongs to the rich. Now, this brings me to the rich. I have something for the rich in this country. I have something for the powerful in this country. Please, if you want to enjoy what you have, whether you stole it or made it miraculously, do not provoke the poor. As things are today, beginning with this budget, you are actually provoking the poor. You are being so insensitive to the poor. By the manner in which you are stealing, and this is becoming more public, you are showing how much contempt you have for the poor. By people calculating and seeing that the kind of theft that goes on, like it would have meant a recruit at the NYS was perhaps using 1.5 cows per day, you are telling the poor they are just useless. And yet, Chinua Achebe has told you, God loves the poor. Otherwise, he would not have made so many of them. So I'm inviting the rich to be a little more sensitive for their own good. Because look at what's happening now. You are going to invite a revolution in this country by carelessly making life difficult for the poor through the cost of living, through unsustainable levels of unemployment, by people going to bed hungry. As if that's not enough, you are beginning to show, as you enter into games of fighting corruption, then you have people in the court sitting down comfortably, applying lipstick, and the poor are watching you. You have some in that game of PR of corruption, fighting corruption. You have somebody going to hospital, living like in a 5-star hotel, and the poor are watching you. You have people from your class going to the remand prison in the same PR effort, and they are being given preferential treatment. Kenyans are watching and they are getting irritated by the day. I'm inviting you to be a little more conscious, to be conscious and conscious of what you are doing. You are inviting trouble, and the trouble will get you. Finally, I want to advise the president to look at this budget more critically. I do so by just asking one question. Could Ruto perhaps be using Henry Rotich to sabotage the president? Just a question, just a thought. Because if you look at this budget, one might be left wondering whether it is not the case that Ruto sees that the handshake is out to destroy him. Could he therefore be using Rotich also to hit back? Because there's no other way I can understand this budget. Absolutely no other way than to see it as an affront on the poor, as an attack on the poor, as a show of contempt for the poor, and as definitely, like I put it, a way of inviting a revolution in this country.